Poor Orphan, forced by her stepmother to marry Crippled Beggar, unaware he's a billionaire in disguise. In the quiet village of Mbale, nestled between the dense forests of Nwagu Hills and the shimmering waters of River Oji, lived a girl named Nia. She was the daughter of a renowned fisherman and a basket weaver, both long buried under the ancient baobab tree at the edge of the village. Orphaned at the age of 22, Nia was taken in by her father's brother, Uncle Kofi, and his wife, Mama Lami, a woman whose smile masked a tongue dipped in fire. At first, the household welcomed Nia, but as the years passed and her beauty blossomed like the morning hibiscus, Mama Lami's heart curdled with envy. Her own daughter, Zuba, though fair-skinned and graceful, lacked Nia's kindness and quiet strength. Men began to whisper Nia's name at the village well, and even the old chiefs nodded thoughtfully when she passed. Mama Lami saw this and hated her for it. Nia, fetch the water. Nia, scrub the compound. Nia, clean the goat pen. Day and night, Nia was worked like a mule, while Zuba lounged in the shade, painting her nails with crushed hibiscus petals. Uncle Kofi, weary from years of farming, turned a blind eye to his wife's cruelty. One evening, the villagers gathered for the Festival of Rain, where songs were sung, goats were roasted, and the elders told tales around the fire. As drums pounded and dancers leaped, an old beggar hobbled into the square. His left leg dragged behind him, useless as a dried root, and his face was half covered with a tattered scarf. He shook a gourd before the crowd, his voice raspy. "Spare a coin for a hungry man," he croaked. People turned away, some in pity, most in disgust. Only Nia rose from her seat and walked through the throng with a warm bowl of goat stew and a chunk of bread. "Here, sir," she said softly, kneeling beside him. "Eat, and may the spirits be kind to you." The beggar looked into her eyes, deep brown like the river at dusk, and smiled. "You have a heart untouched by the world," he said. "Thank you, child." That night, Mama Lami watched from the shadows. Her eyes narrowed. She had been planning something ever since the fortune teller whispered to her in secret. "A girl under your roof will marry a man of great wealth, but only if her heart is true." Mama Lami, convinced it was Zuba, grew desperate to push Nia out of the way. But now she wondered, what if the prophecy meant Nia? 2 months later, a caravan arrived from the eastern hills. It was a small procession, led by a servant who bore a scroll and wore gold rings on every finger. He entered the village and announced, "My master, the great merchant Baba Kwaku, seeks a wife. He has chosen this village and offers gold, spices, and silks in return for the hand of a virtuous woman." The village erupted into whispers. Who was Baba Kwaku? Some said he had caravans in the north and ships by the coast. Others claimed he was mad and lived in rags despite his riches. Mama Lami acted quickly. She dressed Zuba in her finest wrapper, layered her in beads, and painted her face with red clay and crushed kola nut. But when the servant came to the house, he looked at Zuba once and shook his head. "Not her," he said. "My master saw a girl feed a beggar at the Festival of Rain. That is the one he seeks." Mama Lami's face drained of color. Zuba wailed in disbelief. Nia stood frozen, her hands still wet from washing clothes. "You cannot be serious," Mama Lami hissed. "She's a servant, an orphan." But the servant was firm. "She has the heart. My master will marry no one else." And so it was decided. Mama Lami burned with rage. In secret, she devised her revenge. If Nia was to marry a rich man, then let her marry one unworthy, one who would ruin her life. She called upon a crippled beggar who often slept behind the market stalls, a man everyone avoided. "I have a plan for you," she whispered, slipping him a handful of coins. "You will pretend to be the merchant Babakwaku. We will dress you, feed you, hide your limp until after the wedding. Then you can go back to your ways, and the girl will be bound to your misery." The beggar chuckled. "And what do I get in return?" "Gold, land. I will make sure you are rewarded," Mamalami swore. But what she didn't know was that the beggar wasn't truly a beggar at all. His name was Kojo Afolayan, a billionaire who had once been betrayed by his own family and cast out. For years, he had walked the land in disguise, searching for a woman with a heart of true compassion. Many had turned away from him in disgust, but Nia had fed him, knelt beside him, and looked into his eyes without flinching. Kojo accepted Mamalami's offer, amused and curious. The wedding was set within the week. Nia wore her late mother's wrapper, simple but clean. She did not cry, nor did she smile. She simply bowed her head and accepted her fate. If this was what the spirits chose for her, so be it. The village watched in stunned silence as she was wed to the crippled beggar. Mamalami beamed, satisfied that she had humiliated the girl. But Kojo, now her husband, only smiled behind his scarf. "You are not what you seem," Nia whispered to him that night. "And neither are you," he replied. Far from the village, in a sprawling estate, behind guarded walls, servants began to prepare. Their master was coming home, with a wife. The sun had barely risen when Nia was roused from her mat with a gentle nudge. "We must leave," said the man she now called husband. He was still wrapped in that same tattered scarf, though someone had given him cleaner clothes. His limp was visible, but no longer as dramatic, and his voice held a quiet confidence, soft yet commanding. Nia blinked at him. "Leave? To where?" "To my home," he said, "far from Mbale." Mamalami, already awake and pretending to sweep the yard, didn't hide her satisfaction as she eavesdropped from behind the compound wall. Zuba stood behind her, with arms crossed and eyes blazing with jealousy. "Let her go," Mamalami muttered. "Her road will be long and bitter." But Nia made no fuss. She wrapped her mother's cloth around her waist, picked up the small calabash of herbs her grandmother had once given her, and followed her new husband out of the village with quiet steps and 1,000 questions in her heart. They walked for hours. The forest path curved and twisted like a snake beneath the canopy of ancient trees. Kojo said little, but he walked steadily, despite his limp, using a carved cane with a silver head that caught the light through the leaves. Occasionally, he would glance at Nia and offer her fruit, or rest when she looked tired, but he kept the pace. At noon, they reached the banks of River Oji, where a long wooden canoe awaited them. A man dressed in brown robes and sandals stood beside it, bowing low as they approached. "My lord," he said, "the river is calm today. A good omen." Nia looked at her husband, startled. "My lord." Kojo merely nodded and stepped into the canoe. He turned to Nia and extended his hand. "Come." She hesitated. This was no ordinary beggar. No beggar had servants. No beggar rode in private canoes. No beggar was addressed as my lord. With cautious steps, she entered the boat. The river carried them in silence. Birds chirped from the branches overhead, and small monkeys chattered in the distance. Nia watched her husband closely. There was something graceful in his movements, despite the limp, something deliberate. "Why did you choose me?" she asked softly, at last. He looked at her. "You fed me. It was just food." "No, it was kindness when none was owed. That kind of heart is rare." Nia looked away, confused. "Mamalami arranged this. I had no say She thinks she tricked me, Kojo said, almost smiling. Let her believe that. For now. Nia frowned. Who are you really? Kojo didn't answer. Instead he said, you will know soon. For now, rest, she didn't rest. Her thoughts were restless, like water in a storm pot. By dusk, they reached a wide field just beyond the river. Before them stood a large iron gate, overgrown with vines. Beyond it lay a massive compound, surrounded by thick walls and tall palm trees. The beggar opened the gate with a carved key from his pouch. As they entered, Nia's breath caught in her throat. It was no village home, no mud walls, no leaking roof. A grand house stood before her, white stone with wide wooden doors and carved beams. Rows of servants stood outside, heads bowed. The women wore uniforms of deep blue, the men white wrappers and sandals. The scent of grilled meat and spices wafted through the air. Welcome home, Master Kojo, they said in unison. Nia's mouth fell open. Kojo removed the scarf from his face. For the first time, Nia saw him fully. His features were sharp, his jaw strong, and his eyes deep like the forest at night. He was not old, as she'd assumed. In fact, he looked no older than 35. The scars she'd imagined were not there. His face was clean, noble, only the limp remained. You, she started. You're not a beggar, he finished. No, he motioned to the servants. Prepare a bath. My wife has traveled far. Nia stood rooted to the earth. This was not the life she was forced into. This was something else. That night, as the moon rose high, Nia was led to a wide bathing hut filled with warm water, floating petals, and gentle hands. The maids washed her gently, humming songs she remembered from her childhood. They dressed her in soft fabrics and rubbed her feet with scented oil. Then she was taken to a room with a high bed, tall windows, and painted walls. Kojo entered after some time, leaning on his cane. I will not force you to be my wife in truth, he said. You are here by the will of others. But you are free now, Nia. This is your home. No one will harm you here. She looked at him, uncertain. Why would you do this for me? He sat beside the window, staring out at the stars. When I was young, I had everything. Wealth, power, respect. But I lost it all to greed and betrayal. My brothers turned on me. My friends sold me. I wandered, broken. I wanted to see what the world truly valued. So I walked among it as nothing. As no one, he turned to her. And in all that time, only one soul gave to me without expecting anything. That was you. Nia sat quietly, absorbing every word. And Mama Lami? She asked. She thinks she's punished me. Kojo chuckled. Let her gloat. I will deal with her in time. You won't harm her. No, he said, his voice even. But I will show her what true wealth is. And what it is not. Nia thought about her stepmother and Zuba, who had always believed that gold and beauty ruled the world. Maybe they were wrong. Later that night, Nia stood at the balcony of her new room, looking over the garden below. Flowers glowed silver in the moonlight. Somewhere, water trickled from a hidden spring. She could still feel the ache of the past in her bones, but something new stirred within her. Not love, not yet, but hope. Behind her, Kojo lay on the bed, already asleep. The scarf he once wore now lay folded neatly on a stool. Nia picked it up, held it in her hands, and whispered to the wind. Perhaps this is not the end of my story. Perhaps it's only the beginning. Nia awoke to the sounds of birdsong and the scent of baked yam and fresh pawpaw. For a brief moment, she forgot where she was. No goat pen to clean, no stepmother yelling, no cold water to fetch before sunrise, only warm light filtering through linen curtains and the softness of a bed she still didn't feel she belonged in. She dressed herself, refusing help from the maids, and stepped barefoot into the courtyard. It was quiet, but alive. Flowers bloomed in terraced gardens, and a clear pool shimmered under the morning sun. A mango tree stood in the corner, its branches thick with fruit. Kojo was already there, sitting in a carved chair with a cane across his knees and a book in his hand. "You wake like someone who isn't sure she's awake," he said, without looking up. "I'm not sure yet," she replied. Kojo smiled. "Good. Dreams should be questioned." She walked to the edge of the pool and dipped her fingers in. "This doesn't feel like my life." "That's because it wasn't. Now it is. But why me? Truly. I still don't understand." Kojo set the book down. "Because you didn't flinch when the world did. Because you didn't care for riches or titles. You helped because it was right. That kind of spirit is rare." Nia folded her arms, unsure if she should feel flattered or afraid. "And now I live in a house with 10 rooms and servants and more food than I can eat. I married a stranger with a cane who's richer than kings, and my name is on everyone's lips like I'm something sacred." "You are sacred," he said simply. She didn't reply, but something softened in her chest. Later that day, Nia explored the house more fully. There was a music room with strange instruments from northern kingdoms, a library that smelled of old parchment and leather, and a tower that overlooked the valley and the distant river. She found women weaving fine cloth, cooks preparing stews with spices she'd never tasted before, and a courtyard where children, orphans from nearby villages, played under the watch of gentle caretakers. "Kojo takes in anyone who's been cast out," one of the maids, Abeni, whispered. "He says the world throws away too many good things." Nia watched the children laugh. A boy with a missing hand threw a stone with perfect aim. A girl with a limp ran faster than most. She smiled, and for the first time, she saw Kojo's world not as something foreign, but familiar. These were people like her, people who had been discarded. That evening, Kojo invited her to dinner under the starlit pergola. A long table was laid with bowls of roasted guinea fowl, plantains, groundnut stew, and fresh bread. Candles flickered in the breeze, and soft music drifted from a kora played nearby. "I hope you're hungry," he said, as she sat beside him. She nodded. "More curious than hungry," he laughed. "Ask anything." Nia didn't hesitate. "What happened to your leg?" Kojo's eyes darkened slightly. "A gift from betrayal. My brother Ekin pushed me from a cliff during a dispute over our father's inheritance. I survived barely. Spent a year in the bush healing. That was when I realized wealth had made me blind to people's hearts. I decided to vanish. Let them think I'm dead. That's when I became the beggar." Nia was silent for a while. "And your brother?" "Rules in my place back in the city. Or thinks he does." "You plan to return?" "One day, when the time is right. But I want no bloodshed. Only truth." Nia studied him. "You're a strange man, Kojo Afolayan," he grinned. "And you're a strange girl, Nia of Mbali." That night, as the wind rustled the palms, a figure watched the estate from beyond the walls. Draped in a long black robe and carrying a hooked staff, the stranger whispered into the wind. "So, the beggar lives." His name was Ekan, Kojo's brother, and he had just learned that the man he thought was dead had married to a village girl. He clenched his fist. "This time, I will finish what I started." In the days that followed, Nia began to feel like a guest no longer. She worked alongside the women in the garden, helped teach the children, and slowly allowed herself to enjoy the peace she'd never known. But her dreams began to shift. Each night, she dreamed of fire, of her old village burning, of Mama Lami weeping, of Zuba screaming her name. Sometimes she saw a shadowy figure with a cane falling from a cliff and disappearing into the river. One morning, she woke in a sweat. Kojo was already sitting beside her. "You dreamed again," he said, watching her closely. "I don't understand it," she whispered. "I feel like something is coming." He took her hand. "You're not wrong." She looked at him. "You felt it too." He nodded. "Ekini knows I'm alive. I felt it the moment the crows stopped flying near the gate. He's planning something." Nia sat up straighter. "We should leave." "No," Kojo said. "We prepare. We protect what's ours. But I'm not ready for a war." "This isn't a war." "Not yet. But it is a reckoning." A week later, a letter arrived at the estate. A servant handed it to Kojo. He read it silently, then passed it to Nia. It read, "I hear the beggar now sits like a king. But does a throne built on pity last? Come to the old baobab tree in Mbale in 7 days, or your secrets will burn." There was no signature, but both of them knew. Ekini had made his move. Kojo looked at Nia. "Will you go with me?" She didn't even blink. To the end, the road to Mbale was dry and cracked beneath the travelers' feet. Kojo and Nia journeyed without guards, without gold, without fanfare, just as they had left. But this time, Nia walked with her chin held high and Kojo's cane tapped with purpose. There was no wedding cloth on her body, no veil of shame in her heart. She was not returning as the orphan girl. She was returning as herself. The old baobab tree loomed in the distance as they approached, its twisted roots gnarled like the hands of an elder, pointing back at time itself. Beneath its shade, the village of Mbale had gathered. Word of their return had flown faster than fire in dry season. Mama Lami stood at the front of the crowd, arms crossed, mouth tight. Zuba stood beside her in a wrapper too fine for dust roads, her eyes flitting with confusion. And at the edge of the clearing, beneath the baobab's lowest branch, leaned a man draped in black robes, the sun casting jagged shadows across his face. Ekini. Nia felt Kojo's hand tighten slightly on the cane. She stepped closer to him. "I'm ready," she whispered. He nodded. "Then let us finish this." As they entered the clearing, murmurs rippled through the villagers. "Is that the beggar?" "No, look at him. He walks with pride now." She came back. Nia came back. Ekini stepped forward, his face twisted in a smirk. "Well, well. The dead walks. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. You always did have a talent for crawling back." Kojo stopped a few paces away, silent. Eken's eyes drifted to Nia. "And this is the one? The village girl you tied yourself to? How poetic. She probably still believes you limp from a fall and not from shame." Nia's voice rang clear before Kojo could respond. "Say what you came to say, Ekini." The villagers turned sharply. Nia had never spoken like that before, not to anyone. Ekini arched a brow. "The mouse has found her teeth." "I was never a mouse," Nia said, stepping forward. "Just quiet long enough to hear the snakes hiss." A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd, but it died quickly as Ekini's eyes narrowed. Kojo spoke at last. "You sent the letter." "You want something?" Ekini smirked. "Oh, I want many things, but mostly I want the truth to be known." He pulled something from the folds of his robe, a scroll, marked with a red seal. "This," he declared, holding it up, "is the deed to our father's estate. The one you left behind when you disappeared like a coward. It names me the rightful heir." Kojo shook his head. "It was signed after I was pushed from the cliff." Ikena's smile widened. And yet, no one saw me push you. No proof, just your word. The word of a crippled ghost. I have no need for the estate. Keep it, Kojo said simply. That seemed to take Ikena back. He faltered slightly. Then why return? For justice, Nia said. Not revenge. Kojo nodded. You sent that letter, threatening to burn secrets. So tell them, Ikeni. What secrets do you carry? Ikena's jaw clenched. You don't get to put me on trial. You did that to yourself, said a voice from the crowd. It was Elder Yao, his staff tapping, as he stepped forward. I remember the day your brother vanished. You told us he fell while hunting wild goats, but the boy who fetched him from the cliff said otherwise. He heard shouting. He saw the cane. Whispers erupted. Ikena's face turned pale. Elder Yao continued. You buried the truth and sat on a throne of lies. But the people are watching now. Zuba clutched Mama Lami's hand. Mama, is this true? Mama Lami looked away. Kojo raised a hand, calming the crowd. Let it be. I did not come to fight over old bones. I came to honor the truth and move forward. Nia stepped beside him, her voice steady. We have no interest in titles or gold. We only came to return what you tried to bury. Dignity. Ikena laughed bitterly. So what now? You go back to your palace with your pretty little wife and play at being a humble king. Kojo shrugged. If it's peace you want, stay in Mbali. If it's war, I won't fight you. But the truth will. Ikena stared at them both, then threw the scroll onto the dusty ground and walked off. The villagers parted silently to let him pass. Mama Lami turned, trying to slip away unnoticed. But Nia called her name. Mama Lami. She froze. You tried to break me, Nia said. And you almost did. But I learned something in the house you tried to bury me in. Broken things can be rebuilt. Mama Lami turned, eyes shining. Not from guilt, but anger buried too deep to soften. I did what I had to do. Life isn't a story where good people win. I gave you a chance. You gave me a test, Nia said, and I passed it. But don't mistake kindness for weakness. If I forgive you, it's not for your sake. It's for mine. Mama Lami said nothing. She only turned and disappeared into the crowd, Zuba following reluctantly. As the sun began to set, Kojo and Nia walked to the baobab tree. Nia knelt and placed a small calabash near the roots. Inside were herbs, soil from her parents' grave, and a piece of her old wrapper. For remembrance, she whispered. Kojo placed his hand on her shoulder. The village gathered slowly behind them. Elder Yao spoke again. You have shown us something we forgot. That worth is not worn, but woven. By the hands, the heart, and the soul. Nia looked around at faces she had once feared. Faces that had once pitied her. Now, they bowed in respect. Not to wealth, but to integrity. That night, Kojo and Nia stayed in the village. They ate roasted maize by the fire and slept under the stars. No silks, no walls, just truth between them. I've seen who you really are, Nia whispered, and I think I want to see more. Kojo turned to her. Even the broken parts, especially those, she said, and for the first time, Kojo wept. Not from pain, but from the weight he no longer carried alone. Kojo and Nia stayed in Mbali for another week after the confrontation under the baobab tree. During that time, the villagers' attitude toward Nia transformed completely. No longer the stepchild or the beggar's bride. She was now spoken of with reverence. The elders sought her thoughts before meetings, and children followed her like ducklings, asking to hear her version of what had happened. Even Mama Lami remained quiet in her compound, her gossip silenced by shame. And Zuba, once prideful and mocking, now watched Nia from a distance, curious, uncertain, and for the first time, humbled. But Nia felt something deeper, shifting within her. "I was born in this village," she told Kojo one evening as they sat beneath the stars. "I was orphaned here, beaten here, and I buried pieces of myself in this soil. But I've never felt more alive than I do now." With you, Kojo placed a gentle hand over hers. Then it was not suffering, it was forging. She smiled. "And yet, I still feel a shadow." Kojo's expression darkened slightly. "So do I." They left Mbale on the 8th day, returning to the estate across River Oji. The house welcomed them with open doors and cheerful staff, but the silence between them on the journey back still lingered in the halls. Something was off. When they arrived, Kojo's steward, Bako, approached with a grim face and a sealed envelope. "This was found at the gate yesterday," Bako said. No name, no messenger. Kojo opened it slowly. Inside was a single strip of palm parchment, inked with neat, precise handwriting. "The ledger is not empty. You are not the only one keeping secrets. A friend." Kojo folded the note with steady hands, but Nia saw the flicker in his eyes. "What ledger?" she asked. He sighed and motioned for her to follow. They descended a staircase she had never noticed before, hidden behind a carved panel in the study. At the bottom was a stone chamber lit with oil lamps. Bookshelves lined the walls, but the centerpiece was a large wooden table on which sat a thick, leather-bound ledger secured with a metal clasp. Kojo opened it. "This is where I kept records when I first built this estate," he explained, "before I vanished. Business, land holdings, names of friends and enemies." Nia looked over the yellowed pages. The ink had faded, but the precision of it remained. Columns, symbols, transactions, initials. "You wrote this yourself?" she asked. He nodded. "Every detail. I never trusted anyone else with the truth." He flipped to the final section, left blank for years. But now, someone had written in it. A single entry, N.A., inheritance claim unresolved. "Watch closely." Nia stepped back. "N.A.? That's my initials." Kojo looked stunned. "I never wrote this." "Then who did?" Before he could respond, a soft knock echoed from above. Bako called down, "Master, there's someone at the gate, a messenger. Says it's urgent." Kojo closed the ledger. "Let's go." They found the messenger, a small boy, no more than 11, trembling at the gate. In his hands was a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "Are you Lord Kojo?" he asked nervously. "I am." The boy handed him the bundle, bowed quickly, and disappeared into the trees. Kojo opened it. Inside was a gold ring with the seal of the Afolayan family crest, and a note. "She knows, and if you don't tell her, I will." Kojo stared at it in silence. Nia read the note and stepped back. "Is it from Akini?" "No," he said quietly. "It's from someone worse." That night, Nia sat alone on the balcony, the warm wind brushing through her hair. Her thoughts swirled. The ledger, the message, the initials. Why had her name been written? She tried to ignore it, but doubt gnawed at her ribs like a slow fire. When Kojo joined her, his face was tight with something unspoken. "Tell me," she said. He didn't respond immediately. Then, "Before I vanished, before the fall, I did business with a man named Adeyemi Otun. He was clever, too clever, and wanted my fortune for himself. I cut ties, but not before I discovered something strange in one of our ledgers. He had created false accounts, using village names." Nia turned slowly. "Mbali?" He nodded. "A few years ago, someone used your father's land. Illegally, as collateral for a massive shipment. When the deal fell apart, the land defaulted to a silent partner. We never knew who signed the documents, but I believe ADEMOYE forged your father's mark. Nia's voice trembled. You think my parents' land was stolen? Kojo nodded. Yes, and someone's trying to keep it hidden. She stood up, heart pounding. That land is mine by blood. You said the world discards good things. My family's name isn't just dust, Kojo. It's roots. It's identity. I know, he said softly. And I think someone knows you're close to uncovering the truth. She stared into the distance. We need to go back. To the river. My father's fishing boat. It's still half buried there. He kept things hidden inside it. Kojo stood. Then we go at first light. That night, Nia dreamed of water. Dark waves, churning. She stood on the bank, arms outstretched, holding the ledger as fire climbed its edges. Behind her, voices screamed. Names she didn't know, faces she couldn't see. And then, a voice, deep and cold. Your love is not strong enough for the truth. She awoke, gasping. Kojo was already up, staring out the window. Neither of them spoke. At dawn, they set out in silence. The estate behind them, the truth ahead. And in the trees behind them, a figure watched with eyes like burning coal. The mist clung to the riverbank like breath on a mirror. Dawn painted the sky with streaks of rose and gold, and birds chattered softly in the reeds. But neither Nia nor Kojo noticed the beauty around them. Their feet pressed deep into the mud as they approached the bend in River Oji, the place where Nia's father's old fishing boat had been left. Half-sunken, overgrown with moss and time. I haven't been here in years, Nia murmured. After my parents died, Mama Lami forbade me from coming. Kojo surveyed the area. Smart of her. If someone wanted the past forgotten, this is where they'd hide the truth. The boat lay tilted against the bank, its wooden frame brittle but intact. A net still clung to the side, weathered and tattered like an old story retold too many times. Nia approached slowly, her fingers tracing the edge of the hull. My father always said, if something is worth keeping, bury it in the water. Fire forgets, but the river remembers. She stepped inside carefully, the wood groaning beneath her weight. Kojo followed. Together, they began to search. The hidden compartment wasn't obvious. Kojo tapped along the floorboards with his cane, listening for hollows. Nia lifted soggy nets and pried at corners with her hands. Then, a hollow thud. She froze. Kojo knelt beside her and used the edge of his cane to pry up a plank. Beneath it, wrapped in thick oilskin, was a bundle. Nia's hands trembled as she lifted it out. The wrapping was sealed with pitch. Kojo helped her cut through it. Inside were 3 items: a folded parchment, aged but still legible, a beaded bracelet, red and black, the same colors Nia's father always wore, a small leather journal, its pages bound with twine. She unfolded the parchment first. It was a land deed, bearing her father's full name, Obamensa, the original ownership mark of the land their home once stood on. The seal was pressed deep into the paper, impossible to forge. I knew it, Nia whispered. He never gave it away. He never sold it. Kojo scanned it, nodding. This document predates any claim made by Adeyemi Otun. The forged deed must have been made after your father's death. Nia opened the journal next. Inside were handwritten entries. Her father's voice inked onto each page. One line struck her. They offered gold for silence, but I refused. My daughter must inherit more than ashes. Kojo's expression hardened. He was threatened. That's why they forged the documents. That's why they erased him. Nia clutched the bracelet to her chest. They didn't just steal land. They tried to erase my family's name from the earth. She stood up suddenly. We have to bring this forward. To the council. To the legal court in the capital if we have to. We will, Kojo said. But we must be cautious. If ADEMOYE is still watching, he'll move fast to bury this again. Nia looked out over the river. Let him try. This time, I'm not the girl sweeping floors while the world burns. Back at the estate, Kojo secured the journal and deed in his private safe. Nia sat in the study with a fresh parchment, drafting a formal petition to the Regional Land Council. Her handwriting was slow but steady. Kojo watched her with quiet pride. You've changed. No, she said without looking up. I'm remembering. But that night, the estate was not still. Shadows moved in the trees. A torch flickered behind the storage barn, and a figure crept to the study window, pressing something beneath the ledge before slipping back into the dark. At dawn, a scream shattered the quiet. Ebony, one of the maids, came running from the hallway, her hands covered in soot. The study, it's burning! Kojo and Nia rushed down the corridor. Smoke curled beneath the door. Kojo kicked it open, coughing as ash filled the air. Flames licked the desk. The safe, open. Gone, Kojo growled, coughing. The ledger, the journal, the deed, they're all gone. Nia stumbled back, heart hammering. How did they get in? They put the fire out quickly, but the damage was done. The documents, everything they had found, turned to blackened scraps. Or so it seemed. Because as the last embers died, Kojo noticed something odd. The safe hadn't been forced. It had been opened, with a key. He turned slowly toward Bako, who had just arrived, sweating and wide-eyed. Where were you last night? Kojo asked. Bako hesitated. I was sleeping. I swear it. Kojo stared. You have a master key. Only you and I didn't. My lord, I would never. But Kojo was already turning to Nia. She walked to the window, silent, and picked something up. A scrap of paper pinned to the sill. She unfolded it. It was from Akeen. I told you she wasn't the only one with secrets. You trusted him. He trusted gold. Your family isn't the only one betrayed. Nia looked at Kojo. He bought your steward. Kojo's face was grim. And now, he has everything. Nia shook her head. Not everything. She reached into her waist wrap and pulled out a folded second copy of the land deed. I made one before we left Mbale, she said. Something told me not to trust the world with just one truth. Kojo exhaled slowly. You're wiser than me? Nia's eyes sharpened. I was raised in a house of betrayal. You learn to hide what matters. But the attack had changed things. Kojo summoned his most trusted allies, merchants, scribes, even a magistrate, and explained everything. They began rebuilding the case, and this time they made plans not just to defend, but to strike. Nia, Kojo said, as they studied maps of land borders and inheritance laws, this isn't just about your family anymore. This is about everyone who's had their names stolen. She nodded. Then let's give them their names back. That night, as lightning danced across the sky and thunder rolled like ancestral drums, Kojo and Nia stood together beneath the estate's archway. You still wear the scars, she said, looking at his leg. I do, he replied. But now, I walk with someone who can carry truth even when I limp. They held hands in silence. In the distance, a storm gathered. But they no longer feared it. The road to Okuta, the capital city, was paved with cobblestones and tension. The mountains loomed in the distance, sharp against a pale sky, while caravans passed by with curious eyes and hushed whispers. People had begun to talk, not just about Kojo, the cripple who turned out to be a hidden billionaire, but about the girl from Mbale who stood at his side, fearless and fierce. Some called her the River Daughter, others called her the Peasant Queen. But Nia wasn't interested in titles. She was interested in truth. They arrived in the capital just before dusk, escorted by a quiet caravan of allies. The city was unlike anything Nia had imagined. Towering structures of stone and wood, tiled roofs like folded fans, market stalls that glittered with silk and gold, and crowds louder than thunder in the hills. But beneath the beauty, the city held another smell: politics. Whispers moved faster than wind. Money changed hands with invisible strings, and the powerful watched everything from behind veils of politeness. Kojo had warned her. The court is not where justice is born. It's where it fights to stay alive, and Nia believed him. Their first meeting was with Magistrate Ebele, an older woman with skin like polished clay and a gaze that made even Kojo pause. "You bring accusations against some of the most respected men in this land," Ebele said, tapping her cane. "Are you prepared to defend them?" Kojo nodded. "We have copies of the original land deed, as well as names of witnesses who can verify forgery." Ebele turned to Nia. "And you, young woman? You claim this land by blood. Are you willing to bleed for it, if need be?" Nia met her eyes. "I've already bled. Now I seek to build." The magistrate said nothing for a moment. Then slowly, she nodded. "Then, let the wheels turn." The trial was set for 3 days later. In those 3 days, chaos bloomed like wildflowers. Allies arrived, old enemies reappeared, and offers came cloaked in generosity. A messenger brought a sealed pouch to the estate where Nia and Kojo were staying. Inside was a small gold ring, identical to the one Kojo had lost long ago, and a note. "Names are just tools. Take this, and we will rewrite yours no signature." But they didn't need one. Adeyemi had returned. "He knows the court is leaning our way," Kojo said, studying the ring. "This is a bribe, a warning, and an insult." Nia took the ring and tossed it into the fire. "He has no idea who he's dealing with." On the second night, just after moonrise, Zuba arrived in secret. Yes, Zuba, Mama Lami's daughter, the girl who once mocked Nia for wearing torn slippers and fetching water before dawn. She wore city clothing now, draped in coral beads, but her eyes flickered with guilt. "I need to speak with Nia," she told Kojo's guard. "Alone." Nia met her in the garden, the moonlight painting silver on the hedges. "You shouldn't be here," Nia said coolly. Zuba lowered her eyes. "I came to warn you. Adeyemi is planning something. He's bribed someone inside the court. He plans to have the magistrate removed before the hearing." Nia narrowed her eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" Zuba hesitated. Because I was wrong about everything. When you left Mbale, Mama Lami was furious, but I watched you walk away with dignity, and I realized I never had that. Nia didn't reply. Zuba continued. "He's using your name again. There's a second fake deed, signed just 3 weeks ago, listing you as the seller of your land. He forged your mark." Now Nia's jaw clenched. "He's trying to paint me as the one who sold my birthright." Zuba nodded. "He wants the court to believe you've already profited from the land." Nia stepped back, heart pounding. "Thank you, but you must leave before he finds out you spoke to me." Zuba's voice dropped. "You're not the only one learning how to fight." Then she was gone. The next morning, the court hall filled like a festival ground. Magistrate Ebele presided at the high bench, her hair wrapped in white cloth. Kojo stood beside Nia in a long navy robe, his cane polished, his shoulders squared. Opposite them stood Adeyemi Otun, smiling, dripping gold, flanked by lawyers and scribes. But Nia didn't look at him. She focused on the table before them, where copies of her father's land deed, her own petition, and the alleged forged sale document all lay waiting. Eboli raised a hand. "Let us begin." The hours crawled. Witnesses were called. Scribes read statements. Kojo spoke clearly, passionately, detailing the forgery, the threats, the fire. Then Nia stepped forward. She held up her father's journal. What remained of it? Just a single page they had recovered from the fire. She read, "They may break my back, but they will not break my name. Let the river remember, and let my daughter one day rise." The hall was silent. Eboli looked at Adeyemi. "You are accused of falsifying land ownership, fraud, and coercion. How do you plead?" Adeyemi chuckled. "Not guilty. In fact, I present a deed signed by Nia Mensa herself, selling the land willingly." For a generous sum, gasps rose. He handed the paper forward. Eboli scanned it, then passed it to Nia. She stared at the signature. It looked like hers. Her name, her mark, but it wasn't her hand. She turned to the magistrate. "May I prove it false?" Eboli nodded. "Go on." Nia reached into her satchel and withdrew a second parchment, her original petition, signed in her hand. Then she placed them side by side. "Compare them. The signature is different. The loops, the spacing, the pressure." She turned to Eboli. "Also, I am left-handed. Whoever signed this forgery used their right hand." Murmurs spread. Eboli leaned forward. "You're certain?" Nia held up her ink-stained left hand. "Every callus says so." Adeyemi's smile vanished. Eboli turned to him. "Do you have an explanation?" He didn't. He just clenched his fists. The verdict came swiftly. The land was returned to Nia's name. Adeyemi was charged with fraud and placed under investigation. The court applauded, and for the first time, Kojo let his cane drop and stood tall without it. "You did it," he whispered to Nia. She smiled. "We did." That night, the estate roared with celebration. Music played. Fires crackled. Dancers whirled under the stars. But in a quiet room upstairs, Kojo poured a drink and handed it to Nia. "To the river," he said. She clinked his glass. "And to the girl who came from it." The morning after the court's victory, the estate was quiet, almost serene. The air smelled fresh with rain, and sunlight spilled through the windows like liquid gold. But beneath the calm, something heavy settled in Nia's chest. She stood on the balcony overlooking the river, her eyes tracing the flow of water that had carried so many secrets. Secrets now finally revealed. Kojo joined her silently, leaning on his cane, but standing taller than ever before. "The fight is over," he said softly. Nia didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into the pocket of her robe and pulled out a small, worn piece of parchment. Her father's last letter. "My daughter, the river is patient, but it never forgets. Your strength lies not in the land, but in the love and justice you bring to it. Trust in the water, trust in yourself. Oba Mensa." She folded the letter carefully and tucked it away. Kojo smiled gently. "You've done more than reclaim land. You've restored a name, a family, and a future." Nia's gaze didn't waver from the river. "There's still much to do. Mama Lami's house is empty now. The villagers look to me differently. I want to build schools, protect the land, and give back what was stolen. Not just to me, but to everyone who suffered." Kojo nodded. "That is a queen's heart." As the days passed, Nia and Kojo set their plans into motion. the estate became a hub of activity. Workers repairing old buildings, children laughing in new classrooms, farmers tending fertile fields. One afternoon, as Nia walked through the village market, she saw Zuba selling baskets. Their eyes met, and Zuba offered a shy smile. "You were brave to come forward," Nia said. Zuba nodded. "I wanted to make amends." "I owe you that much." Nia placed a hand on Zuba's shoulder. "We all have paths to walk. Let's walk forward together." But peace came with its own challenges. One evening, Kojo received a letter from an old friend, Iken. The handwriting was hurried, but familiar. "Meet me at the baobab tree at sunset. I have something to confess." Nia and Kojo exchanged wary glances, but agreed to go. Under the sprawling branches of the baobab, Iken waited, shadowed by twilight. "I was the one who sent the first note," Iken admitted, "and I've been working for ADEMOYE longer than you think. But I couldn't let him destroy you both." Kojo's eyes narrowed. "Why?" Ikeni swallowed hard. "Because I saw what he was capable of. And because I've always believed in your vision, Nia. I wanted to stop him from within." Nia's heart raced. "Why tell us now?" "Because the fight isn't over," Ikeni said. "ADEMOYE has one last card. A secret account that funds his operations. If we expose it, he loses everything." Kojo looked at Nia. "Will you trust him?" Nia took a deep breath. "We have no choice but to try." The next weeks were filled with strategy and quiet alliances. With Iken's help, they traced the hidden funds to a network of merchants and officials. The final confrontation came not with swords or fire, but in a courtroom filled with powerful men. ADEMOYE's empire crumbled as evidence mounted. His allies deserted him, and his name was blackened beyond repair. At the celebration that followed, Nia stood before the gathered crowd. Her voice was steady, clear. "The river teaches us that even when currents try to drag us under, we can rise. We can rebuild. We are stronger together." Kojo stepped beside her. "And together, we will protect what is rightfully ours." The villagers cheered. Children danced. Hope flowed like the river itself. Months later, Nia sat in her father's old study, now her own, writing letters and planning new projects. A soft knock came at the door. It was Kojo. He smiled. "There's someone to see you." Nia followed him to the veranda, where a small boy waited, clutching a bundle. He handed it to her with a shy smile. Inside was a simple, wooden box. Opening it, Nia found a new bracelet, this one woven from river reeds, bright with beads. A note lay beneath. "For the daughter of the river, may your legacy flow for generations from all who believe in you." Tears filled Nia's eyes. Kojo took her hand. "This is only the beginning." Nia nodded. The river below sparkled in the sunlight. Endless, patient, eternal. The end. Don't forget to hit the like button, share, and subscribe to my channel for more heartfelt African storytelling. Tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new story. Thank you.